One evening, Percy the Green Engine was shunting near Farquhar Station. It had been a long and tiring day, but as he was finishing, he spotted a small group of men on the platform taking photographs of him. "Look, you're quite the star, eh, Percy?" grinned his driver. Percy smiled. He enjoyed the attention and felt even prouder when the man walked over and talked to him and his crew. When he backed into the shed, he still felt very proud. "You look cheerful," said Thomas. "Oh, I am," beamed Percy, quickly explaining. "They clearly know a star when they see one." Thomas rolled his eyes, but Toby laughed. "What's so funny?" snorted Percy. "Oh," recovered Toby, "just remembering the last time I heard those words. Do you remember, Thomas?" He smiled. Thomas looked confused. "No," he finally spoke. Toby grinned. "That doesn't surprise me," he said. The two tank engines looked over at him. "Toby, what are you on about?" asked Thomas. "Oh, just something that happened a long time ago to you, Thomas." "What happened?" interrupted Percy. Toby smiled again. "Mind if I tell you the story, Thomas?" he asked. "Yes, then I might know what you're on about," muttered Thomas. So Toby began. Now, this happened long, long ago. It was 1985, and a few weeks prior to the Brit Allcross Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends television series had just finished airing. And because of that, we were very busy. Of course, most had learned about us from the Reverend's books, but the show brought floods of more visitors. Everyone wanted to see us. The main line was busy, and this line was overworked. We never had so many passengers. "I don't remember that," cut in Percy, but he was quickly hushed by Thomas. Toby continued. "You were in the works, Percy. Mavis was doing your goods work while me and Daisy and Thomas dealt with passengers. Now keep in mind, Daisy hadn't been in the show yet. I was only in a few episodes. Thomas, however, wasn't. He was the celebrity of the island, and he certainly acted like it. One morning, he was as boastful as ever." "Look at all those people," Thomas cried. "The first train wasn't due, but the station was packed." "They've come to see you, probably," muttered Daisy. She was feeling a little bit down since no one seemed interested in her. "Obviously, I'm the world's most famous engine after all," boasted Thomas. "I do feel sorry for you, not being known at all." "Oh, come on now, Thomas," said Toby. "You don't need to rub it in." "Ha! You're just jealous," he grinned, and as he puffed away. Toby and Daisy were quite agreed. Thomas was getting far too cocky. Thomas soon backed down on his train, to shouts and cries of awe from passengers. Many stood trying to get his photograph. Others flocked to Thomas's grab, trying to get an autograph for Thomas's crew. They felt rather overwhelmed. "Blimey, you're popular," called the driver. "Never signed my name so much." "Shame you can't, Thomas. These books are for a rather small buffer print," laughed the fireman. Thomas smiled as the guard started shooting passengers into their seats. As Thomas finally departed, he called over to me. "Look, Toby, these passengers know a star when they see one," he bragged. Thomas was feeling pleased with himself. At every station, many admirers took photographs, and some even stood at the line's side. As he passed each one, Thomas became more and more boastful. At lunchtime, Daisy was at Elsbridge as Thomas rolled in, whistling cheerfully. "Hello, Daisy. You've come to admire me as well?" he mocked. Daisy fumingly, crossly puffed away. "Come now, Thomas, you needn't be like that," scolded Annie. But Thomas didn't care. He rolled away, cameras clicking as he left. As he rolled under a bridge, lots of adoring fans waved and called, Thomas, making Thomas cockier still. He was still no better when he started back at the line. Little did he know what would be ahead. As you know, the road at Heckenbach Tunnel curves before the hill climb. Two keen photographers parked their car at the roadside. They knew Thomas was due. They were eager to get some good photos. But they were so keen to see Thomas, they failed to observe their car brakes. They hadn't put them on properly. Just as they set their cameras out, their car started rolling backwards. The men could do nothing but watch in horror as the car slipped down the bank. The car remained upright, finally stopping against the line slide. But the back wheels had bounced over the rails, car now partly blocking the track. The man raced towards it, but they could not move the car, and it was then they heard Thomas's whistle. Thomas was running well as he neared the tunnel. He saw the men waving to him. Thomas smiled. "More fans," he cheered. His driver saw them differently. What were they doing so close to the line? He cried. It was their shouts of their shouts of stop were heard. "Brake, Thomas! Brake!" gasped the driver. Thomas did so. Just as the car came into view, Thomas screwed his eyes shut and waited for impact. There was a loud crash as Thomas hit the car. Thomas had finally stopped, but he had pushed the car clear of the line and now stood on its side. The crew inspected the scene and spoke sternly to Thomas. "You silly engine, you should have known better. We could have stopped in time," scolded the driver. But you were too vague-headed to think straight." Thomas muttered a quick apology. The guard called for his help. The two men, who had apologized profusely, boarded the train as the tow truck came to take the car away. When he reached Farquhar, Thomas was very quiet. Daisy quickly noticed. "Something happened?" she asked. "We had a little accident," replied Annie. Daisy was about to ask further, but when the tow truck with the damaged car had a slight dent from Thomas's bumper, Daisy quickly realized, "Oh, Thomas," she laughed. Found a way to give autographs then," she teased. Thomas remained silent. Thomas had to remain the rest of the day in the shed. As he was given a proper looking over, he was fine. But he felt silly. He made sure he was asleep when Toby and Daisy returned. Next morning, Thomas was still quiet. I had asked Daisy to keep quiet too, but that failed. When Thomas's crew arrived, Thomas's driver was waving a newspaper. "Look, Thomas," he laughed, pointing. "There on the front page." It was a picture of Thomas with the damaged car beside. The driver read the headlines. "Famous engine strikes car. When Thomas tired of the road." Me and Daisy couldn't help laughing. Thomas remained very quiet. Toby smiled as he finished. "Thank you for the story, Toby," smiled Percy. The two looked over at Thomas. He had fallen very silent. Toby spoke kindly to Thomas. "I'm sorry, Thomas. I didn't say that to upset you. We can all be like that sometimes." Thomas still remained quiet until he had to speak. "Hang on. How did you know the details? You weren't there." Toby grinned. "What do you think Annie, Clarabelle, and Henrietta talked about in their shed? And anyway, driver kept the newspaper article." He smiled. Percy laughed loudly as Thomas retired to sleep, abashed. Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas and Friends Productions here. This story was written by Vic, or Beatywell on Twitter. The link to his Twitter page will be linked down below. Thanks!